Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Musings of the Shakespearean Shrew. I am your Shakespearean Shrew, Karen Feiner, professor from the University of Oklahoma and lover of all things bard. This podcast is going to be a decorum-be-damned entrance into understanding Shakespeare's stages, for there are many, and all the players on it. I am back at the Mermaid Tavern, and this time with Bell Reeves, who is actor, director, and intimacy designer. And before we start talking about anything else, I just have to ask, because it's not one of our usual titles, what is an intimacy designer and what do you do?
Great question. So intimacy design is something I learned about whenever I was graduating from OU. I was in the Helmer School of Drama. I graduated with my BFA in theater with an emphasis in acting. I learned it from my mentor, Dr. Kate Bissell. She created Heartland Intimacy Design. And she's also the intimacy design instructor at OU. So intimacy design is basically, as an intimacy designer, I come in and I help facilitate what's on the page, what's in the director's mind, and actor safety all at the same time. So I'm like a Swiss Army knife of
That's a great description.
Facilitation. Yeah, I just want to make sure that whatever's happening in these very either emotionally charged or physically charged moments, that it happens as safely as possible while staying in line with text and directorial vision.
Well, that's awesome. And so for Macbeth, you are playing Lady Macbeth. So your docket is full. So you're not the intimacy designer for Macbeth. What are some of the productions that you have been intimacy designer for, and what are some of the situations that you've really had to kind of work with for that?
Yeah, so at OSP, I intimacy designed Born with Teeth. I intimacy designed Much Ado About Nothing, and probably a whole bunch of other ones as well. I've also worked with Edmond North High School and Collective Arts Productions in the OKC area as well. We love co-arts, shout out. What was the rest of your question?
So what did you do in those productions as an intimacy designer?
Yeah, so with Born with Teeth, I helped facilitate a lot of intimate action. There's times when someone is like pushed on a table and like kind of mounted in a way, and in a space like the black box that we have here at beautiful Oklahoma Shakespeare. It's kind of hard to facilitate intimacy design from all of these angles. There's a lot of different sightlines. So that was like a really fun thing to work around with too. Sorry, I feel like I can hear my mouth clicking. And it's driving me crazy.
I'm keeping that in, just so everybody knows. We're keeping that in.
An acoustic experience for our audio listeners. All I do is give.
So now you've taken on the role directing Macbeth, and you've also taken on a very large role in Macbeth. Is that difficult to balance, being both director and very prominent actor in the production?
Yeah, it feels like my hands are really full, but luckily theater is collaboration at its core. So we kind of joke around in the directing team that we're like different heads of a hydra. So Justin is really good at like the business and bones of things, and I'm really good at kind of adding like some like interpretation and like knowledge to certain aspects of things. And then Dylan is kind of like just shout out Dylan Raspberry. Thank you so much for everything you do all the time. He keeps us both oriented, and also just has a great eye and vision for any production that he works on. So it's killer to work with Dylan.
So now you've heard about the Dream Team, everybody. And this is the Emerging Artists Collective, which one day, I'm not gonna wanna say consortium, but the Emerging Artists Collective. So this is something that is new. This is something that is actually seeing its first show in Macbeth, where we have you three directing this production. Is this something we're going to see a lot more of?
Oh my gosh, hopefully, if we do well, it'll continue longer than we're around, which I think is kind of the whole point, and an awesome point to work towards, to have something that lasts even whenever you're not maybe in the same market or have died. That got really dark. What is a legacy?
Oh, That's great. I was gonna say, are we gonna sing this?
I can. It might get copyright claimed.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so as I said, as an intimacy designer, and then somebody playing Lady Macbeth, what are some of the moments in this production where you have kind of had that as the back of your mind, where your other self, your other position has kind of infiltrated into your role as Lady Macbeth? Has that happened at all for you? Because there's a lot of deep, dark moments.
Yeah, there's a lot of very emotionally intimate and intense moments in our production of Macbeth. So being an intimacy designer, intimacy design principles are kind of foundational to anything that I work on. We have a self-care cue for the production, which is an intimacy design term. And we do a lot of work with boundaries, like where are you okay with being made contact with, where are you not? That can change day by day. We want to make sure to check in where we are mentally and emotionally and physically all at once in the room. We have a few intense moments, but nothing incredibly sexual, which I feel is a little bit of a deviation from how Lady Macbeth and Macbeth's relationship is kind of portrayed. I feel it's really popular to have a Lady Macbeth that's like, ooh, I'm evil and I'm gonna use my sexuality, hard as syllable. I'm gonna use my sexuality to get what I want from my husband. But I feel our production really leans more on the love between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. So it's not so much like, how can I dominate you with my sexuality, but more of leaning into that aspect of my dearest partner of greatness.
So I feel like that almost might be harder, because with the heart as sexuality, right? It's using those feminine wiles and just playing into almost the trope.
Mm-hmm.
But to create love, to create that kind of intimacy, to me seems more difficult. What are some of the aspects that go into creating that for the stage? Creating something that is both, a fiction, because it's the stage and thus, and also real for us as an audience, where we do recognize that love that exists between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth.
Yeah, it's the Macbeths at the end of the day in our production are a couple that up until a very certain point in the script ride or die for each other, and then after that point kind of becomes more of a ride and die for each other, in a way. They're such a cohesive unit in the beginning of the play, really like a dynamic duo, and then whenever we hit that moment of be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, we kind of have the first fracture in our mosaic of this play.
So it's that moment that he doesn't tell her. It's that moment that he's no longer communicating, it's no longer reciprocal.
Yes, and it's so indicative of this overarching theme that we have of the corruptive nature of ambition. We have it corrupt and corrode. I mean, our set has rust elements literally wearing away at the foundation of the land that we are and where we are in this time. We have Ross. Ross goes to Lady Macduff. That's his cousin, but he doesn't fully tell her, hey, somebody's on the way to kill you. Why doesn't he do that? There's ambition there. Lady Macbeth and Macbeth, they're not quite lust for power, but I mean, their ambition for power ends up tearing them apart as well. It kind of decays and erodes all the nature and element of this show, unless we can get our audience to kind of buy into our main message of, but you can make a change. You can stop this corruption. You can face these cycles that you benefit from that may not be equitable for everyone else and deconstruct them, or, like we see with Macbeth, fall victim to them.
I love that. Okay, so, and I think one of the hard things to do is get away from, like you said, the preconceived notion of Lady Macbeth, because in episode 2, when I was talking to Tyler about Macbeth, he was like, yeah, and it might have been you who brought up that she's the only dictionary definition character where it's like, she has a dictionary, and I was like, huh. So I went to the OED, and a Lady Macbeth is a remorseless or ruthless woman, especially one who assists or controls a weak man.
Slay.
And I thought it was so interesting because it was first used in 1791 by John Ireland, and then it was used in 1875 by Anthony Trollope, and then 1919 by Rudyard Kipling. So these are big names who were like, yes, I really like this, like, let's go with a Lady Macbeth. And so you are already kind of put in a little bit of a box as Lady Macbeth. This is who you are, because she's one of the more known characters. It's not like a lot of people are coming in and they're like, who is Lady Macbeth? Right? They come in and they're like, I know who Lady Macbeth is, right? She either is the snake, as some people consider, or she's the Eve that succumbs to the snake, right? And so how do you deal with those preconceived notions?
Yeah.
How does it feel being a dictionary definition? I mean, I'm a Karen, so I mean,
No.
I get, that's honestly, I actually looked up a Karen as well, because being Karen Feiner, I was like, okay, I all of a sudden had this affinity for Lady Macbeth where I was like, man, we're both dictionary definitions. And so I went to look up Karen. An obnoxious, angry, entitled, and often racist middle-aged woman who uses her privilege to get her way or police other people's behaviors. I will be a Lady Macbeth any day. But it's also one of the reasons that I named myself the Shrew, because I went to my boss, she's the head of the English department at OU, and I was like, so I'm starting this podcast, I'm working with OKC, Shakespeare in the Park, and I was like, I am the Shakespearean Shrew, and she's like, but do you want to be a shrew? And I was like, well, my name is Karen, so I feel like I'm gonna end up in that boat anyway, so I'm just gonna embrace it and go with it, because otherwise I'd rather be a shrew than a Karen. And then I looked up the definition and I was like, yes, that's still true. But, again, like, I think there's that affinity that I have now with Lady Macbeth where I'm like, damn it, like, what does it mean to already be so defined?
Right. Yeah, there's just there is truly, because Lady Macbeth is such an iconic character, everybody has an opinion about her. And that's cool, and everybody's had an opinion about her for 400 years, and that's really, really tight. What I'm interested when it comes to Lady Macbeth, what I really care about, is that at the end of the day, she is a girl. She's a girl, and in ours, it's during this land run time period. Her husband has been gone from the ranch for months. It is literally just her and like her gentlewoman friend on the ranch in this very male-dominated, masculine time period. And I think the best way to kind of subvert these highly sexualized and evil and just like malintended tropes is to lean into the humanity of it. Like, I'm interested in seeing a Greta Gerwig Lady Macbeth, or an Emerald Fennell Lady Macbeth, or something that just gives a little bit more nuance and flavor and like tone than like this blanket of the night that comes and sweeps through Dunsinane and just leaves it all bloody.
Sometimes I almost feel like people think that, the witch and Lady Macbeth are both these characters of, hell in a way, or way, shape, or form. And I think it's so interesting because I think there's problems with both of those elements, whether we're considering the witches, or in this production's case, the witch, or in Lady Macbeth, that assignment of evil, of something beyond nature. It's something that I feel like we're still fighting all the time. And so, I like what you're saying about the nuance, those elements. How do you deal with, those lines we just talked, we were talking about with Dylan in the previous episode of unsex me here, and the, I know what it's like to have a child and love that child, and then take that smiling child, remove it from my breast and bash its brains out, and we're like, whoa, like that's intense. What do we do with that kind of obstacle to the role and the assumption that we make of woman as maternal, of, you know, the gentle woman, and then we've got Lady Macbeth.
It's really interesting because, like, as you were talking, I couldn't stop thinking about how we really view these two, like, explicitly female characters as the architects of male downfall whenever we don't really acknowledge their own personal agency and choice in it. And I think that's really kind of funny how this has been going on for like 400 years of like, oh, you're such a Lady Macbeth, like, now you're the witch, now you're an outsider, and of course, like, you tempt these men into downfall. Very biblical, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
see that.
And there's that aspect of, like, the witch is bearded, right? Is like, they talk about her being bearded, this idea of blurring gender. And then Lady Macbeth is the same thing, where, again, she is embracing this masculinity. And so not only are they both women who are like, you caused this problem, this is your fault, but they're both women who are not filling their roles, are not fitting into the construct of what it means to be a woman. And I think that it's so interesting with Shakespeare because, I'm working on a project talking specifically about his outsiders, and everybody is like, they're quick to be like, this is bad, this is, he's creating an outsider out of these people, out of, whether it be Aaron the Moor, whether it be Shylock, we have a lot of those. And like you said with Lady Macbeth, if you read it a certain way, yeah, you can read yourself into the trope, you can read yourself into the stereotype, or you can read yourself out of it. And I think that, for me, is what I love about Shakespeare, is that he allows you as an actor, as a reader, to read more than one definition. Read into something and see more than what was shown from, from one perspective. And he was writing to what some people consider two perspectives, right? The groundlings and the gallery, where you'll always see people right back into, the 16th century being like, all right, the groundlings are the stupid people where he's making dick jokes and that's all they get. And then you've got the gallery who understand the other aspects. But I don't think people realize is that for the groundlings, that's where they were getting their news. That's where they were getting their understanding of what was going on in the world. And so when we're looking at Macbeth, and we're saying, yeah, maybe don't commit regicide. It fits right into the gunpowder plot where, we're seeing the aftermath of that and being like, all right, stop trying to kill a king. It will not end well for you. But I think it's about layers. And I think with you, what I love and what I think everybody's gonna be excited to see is what are the layers of Lady Macbeth? And what are the layers in the relationship between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth? I think those are things that, anybody who's coming to see this production can really pay attention to and get some insights from, even today, right? Like, I think that's one of the great things about Shakespeare is that we're doing something that was written in 1606, produced in 1606, and we're like, still relevant.
And I will scream that from the rooftops for the next 400 years of, I was talking, okay, so this all ties in. I was talking to my manager at work and kind of explaining Macbeth to her. And she pointed out that, there are themes that have existed for the last 400 years of oh yeah, I guess people are still ambitious, people still want things, shocker. And it kind of reminded me of whenever OSP had a grant to do a tour to rural schools all around Oklahoma. And I was really lucky to be a part of that tour for 2 years. We toured a Midsummer's Night's Dream. And it's really interesting because you're performing to, it's supposed to be a high school, but sometimes these towns are so rural. It's the elementary school all the way up through the high school. They're in one room. It's less than 400 people. And how do you communicate this seemingly very like highbrow, intellectual, very weighty, like like medium of art to kids who have never seen a play before.
Right.
And sometimes adults who have never seen a play before. And it really ties back to Shakespeare was meant to be performed and heard and not necessarily read. And so accessibility in Shakespeare, making these themes that have existed for 400 years and are still very relevant, more impactful today. It's like a delicate dance of physicality and expression, and it does come back to really knowing what you're saying and what you're gonna do about it, about what you want and how you get it.
I mean, I bring my students here, I brought my students to Twelfth Night, and they loved it. And for a lot of them, it was their first play that they'd ever gone to see. And so, you know, it was so interesting because they were like, they made it so that I could understand it. I know, shout out to you all. And that's what is so magical about it is, and that's why I always tell my students, I'm like, don't just read it, because honestly, it's gonna be really hard and you're not gonna understand a lot of it if you're just reading it. Listen to it, get it on one of the audio books, or even better, watch it. And I just think that, you know, it's one of those where the terminologies, the language, a lot of times Shakespeare made up his own words, where he's like, all right, we're gonna use this word today, like swagger. You know, he used it and we were like, you know, it didn't mean anything at that point to what we think it means now. I think that's Kesha's song. But that idea, but like the actor had to sell it. The actor had to swagger, because otherwise they would have been like, what the hell is this? But so context becomes so important. And it becomes, it's not just the language, but it's what you do with it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's always so exciting. And like we talked about, you know, we keep mentioning the obstacles of language. It can either be one of its greatest, you know, one of Shakespeare's greatest attributes, or it can be one of his audience's biggest obstacles, depending on how we use it. And so what brought you to Shakespeare? What was your first Shakespearean experience?
So this is funny because I was actually showing Tyler a photo of this the other day, but my mom has a baby photo of me where we're at Stratford-upon-Avon in front of the birthplace of William Shakespeare.
So from the crib.
Yeah, from the cradle. I was really, no. My first Shakespeare I ever saw was whenever experienced was having to read A Midsummer's Night's Dream whenever I was in 7th grade. And I didn't really like it very much because of the obstacles of the language, and it was just kind of the general idea of like, oh, it's so old and uncool and lame, so like why even try to understand it? But then we saw a recorded version from a local high school, and I remember seeing Oberon come up behind Titania whenever he's trying to convince her to give up her Indian boy and basically end this fairy war that's going on. And it like hit me in that moment. I was like, oh, that's neat. But I didn't truly connect with Shakespeare until my senior year of high school, whenever I was in an AP language arts class and we read Hamlet. And I just connected with it so much. My brain was in a place, I think, where I was also better able to like deconstruct it and understand some of the themes and language behind it. But just, I really related to Hamlet's inaction. Like we have these themes of like passion and logic and inaction, and Shakespeare loves to balance these dualities constantly and flip back and forth between them just as fast as we do. Pivot in a line, the middle of a line, maybe you'll get a period as a treat, you know? And that just really spoke to me. And I didn't learn about acting Shakespeare until I ended up going to OU, and I had Alyssa Branch teach me pretty much everything I know. And it kind of went from there. But my favorite thing about Shakespeare is what I used to hate about it, being the language, being the form, because now it's like the world's most interesting puzzle. Because if you look at it, it's meter, it's verse, it's language, these standard deviations from what we accept to be baseline mean something. You know, feminine endings mean something, and it's very playable whenever you see that as an actor and you go, okay, well, 11th syllable, I know something emotional is happening here, there's a change, or if the meter breaks up. It's what I love that about Shakespeare, and it's kind of interesting. It's almost why I prefer it to contemporary theater sometimes, because you have like a flight log, you have an itinerary in front of you of where something starts and where it goes, and how you get there is kind of up to you in a way. I don't know, I could yap about Shakespeare for a really long time.
I love it. It's like a choose your own adventure.
It is.
Okay, so favorite line, favorite character, favorite play, one of them, all three of them. What do you have for us?
I truly don't know if I could ever choose a favorite Shakespeare character. I think maybe Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet. Who doesn't love Mercutio? I mean, he constantly jokes, he's super witty, he's one of those classic Shakespeare characters where you're like, this guy's a total fool. It's like, smartest guy in the room, very aware. And then when he dies, he goes out on a joke laughing, and he just, brilliant. I love Mercutio, excellent art. Mwah.
Right, he's stabbed in the stomach, and then he's like,
Yeah.
let me make a pun about this as I die. And you're like, oh man, props.
Tis not so deep as a well, nor as wide as a doorway, but call for me tomorrow and you shall find me a grave man. Bars, like I love that. But my favorite line in Shakespeare is Lady Macbeth's, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Because is that not what being a woman is kind of almost reducted to in a way? But in its simplicity, it's not just this like indictment against like God gives you one face and you make it another,
right.
From Hamlet. God, men are so interested in telling women what they're supposed to be. And that's kind of really funny for me. But Shakespeare gives you the opportunity to say like, look like what everyone expects you to be, but have who you are and what you want cook under it. That's how kind of I interpret that line. And I think that's almost, in a way, Lady Macbeth's mission statement throughout the whole show of like, give people what they want, but do what you want when you can.
Yes, I love that. And I think that goes back to his ability to give us possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare's ability to take an audience that was very fixed at that time. Okay, you are this position, you are the Glover, you are, any of the beggar, the fool, any of them, and say you can be more than that. You can be more than one role. And for the female, I think that was, even more outlandish for the time of like, wait, what? Like I can be this. I can be more than what I am. And so yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite elements of Shakespeare is he allows us to be so many things. He won't reduce us to Karens and Lady Macbeths. We shake our fists at this. Okay, so I would just like to remind everybody and have you remind everybody about the production, what's coming for them, what they should look out for. If there's anything in particular that you're like, look out for this, I'm coming at you. What are some of the elements that you wanna tell us about?
One of my favorite elements of this whole show is its aspect of movement that we've incorporated, and we have this amazing choreographer that we've been working with, Natasha Bufadel, and she comes in and she has just made our witch section so beautiful and such cohesive story told through movement that is so in line with the super objective of what we're trying to achieve. It's kind of mind-boggling. And we also have a fun hoedown scene that she helped us choreograph because our banquet is now a hoedown. And I really believe in extra textual, like not explicitly text-based interpretation of Shakespeare and what that can add and glean, so these movement pieces tell their own story, and I'm excited for the audience to witness them and see that and be changed in a way, and also to see our wonderful lobby displays that we've got so many like institutions collaborating on us with, and I think it's an excellent primer for the world that they're about to steep themselves into, and I think it's just going to be a really brilliant, brutal, bloody combination of a 400-year-old theater and new recontextualization.
So please come in, grab your Shakespeare, grab your sassy sarsaparilla, grab your El Paseo. They are all amazing. We've tried them, so I am speaking from experience. I also heard there's some kind of snacks to get that are delicious.
Oh my God, Puck's peanut bar, please, if you don't have an allergy, I highly recommend them.
See, noted, right? So the preview is July 31st, which means you can get $17 tickets. It's a steal and a deal. And then it opens the following night on August 1st and goes until the 18th, I believe?
The 18th, Thursday through Sunday.
Excellent. So please come. It will be an amazing opportunity. And then don't forget, we also have the 40 for 40. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary, so we are asking that everybody try to donate $40 in order to keep us open for another 40 years or 400 years, you know, whichever, tomato, tomato. So again, thank you all for listening. I would love your feedback. What did you like? What did you dislike? What do you want to hear about next? Let me know, and please subscribe so you can get an email for the next episode. Remember, all the world's a stage, so you too can be a shrew or a Lady Macbeth. Thank you.